It is my honor to invite Dr. Sujata Khandekar to deliver the keynote address. Dr. Khandekar leads CORO India, an organization that has been driving transformative grassroots changes for over 3 decades. She is also the founder of the Atta Deep Academy of Grassroots Knowledge and is widely recognized for her work in grassroots leadership, women's empowerment, participatory learning, and community led transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Sujata Khandekar for the keynote address.
I take it as an opportunity to have a dialogue with people, committed people from the sector who really want to contribute to the sector in some way, in some meaningful way. So I'm taking this, and thank you again for this. Actually, we all know the theme of this symposium. We all know we are sailing through a lot of vulnerabilities and disruptions, uncertainties. There are economic uncertainties, political, cultural, environmental, all of that. And they're not temporary also. They are here to stay for a long time. Some of them are altering our lifestyles almost in irreversible way. But this forum is not for Rudali. We don't want to moan about it. Actually, the question that we are asking ourselves today is are there any spaces left to intervene? My answer is yes, of course, right? And if it is yes, of course, then how do we think differently? How do we do things differently? How do we invest differently? How do we intervene differently? How do we understand differently? How do we collaborate differently? How do we align differently? These are the questions that we need to deliberate on, not just today, but in a long time to come. Actually, I would like to start with, and all our efforts, all our thinking, all our answering of these questions honestly should lead to I becoming we. Because then only we can have solid impact in the sector, and we will be able to have, we'll be able to negotiate, we'll be able to sail through these uncertainties and disruptions. I'll just start with two examples, very quick examples that are coming from the work that we do at the grassroots. I know there are people from rural contexts and urban contexts both, so I'm taking two examples of different contexts. So we shouldn't think that it happens only in this context. The first example is from Vidarbha, the Gondia district. And this is about the women leadership from the Dhivar community. Dhivar community in Maharashtra is categorized as nomadic tribe, and fishing is their livelihood. Okay? With the onslaught of commercial fish, IMC, Indian major carbs, actually the whole ecosystem of indigenous fish was killed. It was decimated. And in the rush of quite often commercial endeavors, we lose on the traditional means, traditional knowledge, culture, traditional practices that are associated with this. That happened with this community, Dhivar community here. Realizing the loss of diversity in their community, because all indigenous fish was killed. There was no ecosystem. It needs ecosystem to nurture. Realizing that, these three women leaders actually started reviving the water bodies. For us who come from the urban context, water bodies is any standing water in a large country. We say it's a water body. For them, it's not. It's just mud and water. It's water body only if it has the ecosystem for the fish to thrive. And they had ample of knowledge about fishing, everything, because that was their traditional livelihood. And these three women, with the help of a very wise and knowledgeable old person from their community, and with the support of their organization, actually revived the water body. I can remember names, 38 plants and seeds that they sowed into that water body and nurtured it, because that was necessary for nurturing of indigenous fish. Within some year of time, there were 48 species of indigenous fish that were seen in this water body. And each weighing, you wouldn't believe, 1 to 1.5 kg. These women got into the water, they caught the fish, they sold the fish, everything. They formed self-help groups, started some self-employed activities, etc., etc. I'm not going into much details of that, but actually, how do you negotiate with the onslaught of any environmental this thing? And they first restored the water body in their village, then restored 30 water bodies in the vicinity, then 62, and now they are eyeing all water bodies, including those in forest areas in Gondia district. So this is the trajectory. My second example in the urban context is a campaign called Right to Pee campaign. It started for clean, safe, free urinals for women in public spaces in Mumbai. You wouldn't believe, when they surveyed for the first time, there were 1,298 urinaries for men, which were free, and there were 0 urinals for women. It started with that. It started with, in municipal offices, because we went to meet commissioner, etc., it started with people saying in the office, oh, how shameless these women are. They are talking about pee with the commissioner now. So it started with that. But over last 11 years, I'm telling you, actually we are closely working with BMC. There was gender budget sanctioned for women's urinals. There is a toilet block constructed at Gateway of India in collaboration with BMC. There are vigilance committees formed to oversee sanitation with RTP, Right to Pee activists and BMC officials, etc. So it has moved a lot, and now we are working in 6 wards. It's not toilets and urinals in public spaces, it's gender and sanitation also in community. Community vigilance committees are formed, and it's going on. So, and now actually 10 operators, toilet operators from Mumbai have come together to make a film, 70-minute film, that is Mast Mahila Mandali is the name of the film, which talks about their life. So it has another trajectory. I'm just giving you 2 examples. What was common? In both cases, the leadership came from within. It was from Dhivar community, women who led it. It was women from most marginalized communities, those who are aware of Mumbai, Baganwadi, Shivaji Nagar, Vashinaka, these are the areas where these leaders were living, and they have led this campaign. So what was common in these 2 things? I mean, glaringly common, if I would say. One is leadership from within. People who had that issue, they came forward to resolve that issue. There was a lot of collective action. There were collaborations and alignment that happened in the whole process, and none of them was time-bound project. It was process. Right to Pee took 11 years to really get established. The Dhivar community took 3 to 4 years to actually show the results, etc. So these were the common thing. And for me, actually, when we are talking about resilience, where we are talking about adaptive interventions, where we are talking about people-centric interventions, what strikes to me in these both processes is leadership from within. And that is where I'm drawing from, because CORO focuses on grassroots leadership development program. And that's how these all leaders in the program had undergone that process. The focus of this grassroots leadership program is the people from within take initiative to solve their issues. Actually, we from outside occasionally see grassroots people as passive receivers. And we think they can't do anything. They wouldn't do anything. They don't know anything. They are comfortable with whatever we give them. But we realize they are actors. They think, they want to change. It's just their helplessness. And this identity about helplessness, the fragmented sense of identity that marginalized people have, is constructed in a very disciplined way and systematically. For example, if we take gender as part of it, see what we have been told right from the beginning: you can't do this, you are not able to do this, you can't think this, you will be punished for doing this, you are a risk, you are a liability, you are vulnerable, everything. And then we start believing that, oh yeah, we are a lesser human beings. And that identity gets consolidated. The same thing happens with the marginalized community. Actually, our realization while working was we have to do something with this identity construction. It's not about working on instances, it's about working on mental patterns. So how do we change the mindset shift? How the mindset would change from being a victim to being a change maker and the change leader. So the focus of this grassroots leadership development program is this: how do you change your mindset shift? How do you take reins in your hands? How do you understand yourself? How do you understand the power within? Because there is latent power, and that has to be evoked, that has to be realized. You need to understand context. So the focus is on understanding self, understanding context, and understanding your ability to change the context. This is what the leadership program, and all these women leaders that I just talked about had undergone through this program. So the realization about this fragmented identity, because quite often we are also working in development sector, intervention, the organization is an interventionist organization. Quite often we deal with instances, issues, but there is something underlying that needs to be done to make our efforts sustainable. I wouldn't even call sustainable, I would say regenerative. Regenerative is the next step of sustainable because it regenerates, it evolves, it goes further, it transits intergenerationally or to the next cohort maybe. So this was the observation, and I really want all of what did this program do in the communities that the leaders were working? It created community ownership. It actually facilitated community mobilization. It created formal, non-formal institutions that would lead the change further. When we are talking about resilience, when we are talking about adaptive interventions and people-centric interventions, actually, I think we need to ask some questions to ourselves. We need to reflect on that. We need to ask these questions to each other because we are a community. We are here to absolutely, honestly, and frankly deliberate on some things that are bogging our sector currently. So 4 or 5 questions I just want to deliberate on and stop here. One is, we talk about sustainability, right? How much as an facilitating agency, organization, whatever, how much we invest in sustainability of the organization. I'm not talking about financial sustainability, please. I'm talking about sustainability of the intervention, effort, people in the organization. What are we investing into bringing up the firebrand, vibrant leadership of our organization? How much we are investing there? We are talking about inclusivity and diversity, right? How inclusive we are as an organization. What is the composition of our leadership? Who are the people in the organization? Who makes decisions? Who controls resources in the organization? All these questions I think we need to ask ourselves, when we are talking about, are we really embracing diversity in a full-fledged way in our own organizations? If we do that, then we can think of our interventions doing it in the community. Because if it's not in the ethos and culture and formation of the organization, then it becomes difficult. What we do at the community is quite often reflection of who we are. So how do we think about this? We talk about being democratic at the community level. We want communities to be democratic. Are we democratic? Who takes decision? Who is in, who is out? Who is excluded, who is included? So all these questions, I'm just saying because we need to answer these questions ourselves. This is about equipping ourselves as facilitating agents for resilience. Resilience doesn't happen overnight. We have to nurture the resilience system. We have to nurture. It takes really time. How our organizations, how our team feels in our organization. Free, safe, vocal, liberated, aligned with the vision. Is it that? And do we invest in making this happen? So these are some important questions. If we are talking about empowerment, say for example, what is our idea of empowerment? And if we are talking about empowerment, how does our interventions reflect that? How does our assessment reflect it? Because unfortunately in the development sector, we are all currently obsessed by quantitative indicators. There is a belief, unfortunately, in the sector that anything that cannot be measured is either not important or doesn't exist. And in empowerment, actually, we are more about palpable indicators. Confidence, how would you measure it? My dignity, how would you measure it? So there are palpable indicators. Do we try and bring this together, build the bridge between qualitative and quantitative indicators? And for this to happen, we need to collaborate. Collaborate with funders, collaborate with media, collaborate with NGOs. I'm talking about everything, academia, etc., etc. We all need to work together. So we need to be on the same page there. Without that, how can collaboration would happen? And you will all agree, you are all my friends, so you will all agree that collaborations invariably fail in the sector. Why? Because we know what to do together, but we don't understand what to let go. So we get stuck there. So the collaborations don't happen. If you come from different ideology and ethos, collaborations will never succeed. For example, if I want to work in empowerment and my funder says, no, you have to give us quantitative data, it will not work. But similar thing with media, similar thing with academia. So these are few questions I thought are for our reflection. We will deliberate them all through the day today. We will deliberate them after this. Since now we have become friends, we are free and open to speak to each other, take each other's advice. But something that we have to look into ourselves. So why I was bringing this point is, बेर के पेड़ को आम नहीं आएंगे. बेर का अगर पेड़ है तो उसको आम नहीं आएंगे, because what you sow will you reap. So if you are a facilitating agency in doing and bringing out transformative changes, then whether we are equipped to bring such transformative changes and we are clear about our ideas, what we want to do. So I'm just leaving you with this question, and collaborations are really possible in any possible way. There is the traditional models of collaboration and partnerships are not yielding good result. So we have to think about different ways of collaboration probably. So I'll just give you an example from our organization. So we from action leadership, we have also moved to thought leadership from the grassroots and formed Atadeep Academy of Grassroots Knowledge. Atadeep are believed to be Buddha's parting words, which means be your own light, Atadeep Bhava. So this is about building collective knowledge from the grassroots and disseminating it. And I'm just telling you one thing, because Atadeep aspires to build bridges between media, and grassroots, academia and grassroots, funders and grassroots, consultants and grassroots, etc. So I teach a course in KISS on socio-legal dimensions of development practices. Each session is 3 hours and we deal with 10 acts. So in each of the session, 2 hours I do session, but 1 hour the grassroots leader and resource person is the resource person who has done extensive work on that act. And I tell you, actually, students are ecstatic because they can bridge the theory and practice there. They know what are the challenges, what does it mean at the grassroots, how do people navigate through that. So when collaboration doesn't mean only funding together, sitting together. Collaboration means actually weaving these aspects into whatever we are doing. And there is already a space. That's why when I started with my dialogue, I said we need to see, are there any spaces left? And the answer is yes. And we can creatively expand these places, explore these places to the benefit of the development sector. We should definitely look forward to working together, be on the same page as far as possible, but remembering that our ethos, our vision, our values, our culture will be reflected in the interventions that we do, and community will recognize us by those values.